Welcome to another soccer parenting interview. I'm lucky enough to be here with Christian Lavers, who is the Executive Vice President of U.S. Club Soccer and is also the President of the ECNL. Christian, your history and your resume certainly speaks for itself. You currently hold the highest licenses for coaching that are available in the United States. You've coached numerous teams, both boys and girls, to national championships or Final Fours in their respective leagues in a variety of different leagues. You've also taken a big role from an executive standpoint in soccer and from an administration standpoint. It seems like you've really been on a path of trying to simplify the administration of soccer to make it more conducive to player development. What are you most proud of?
Well, I'm happy to be here, so thank you for the invitation. I think if I look back, I've been blessed to have a lot of opportunities in the game and a lot of experiences outside of the game that have given me information and things I can take from other professional worlds into soccer. I think there's a lot of experiences that I'm proud of, that I was blessed to have. Probably the one that stands out the most really is when we started the ECNL 5 years ago. And the reason that stands out to me is such a great moment. It wasn't like an aha moment at the time. There was a lot of risk and there was a lot of uncertainty, and it's easy to look back 5 years and say, wow, that was great. But what was special about it is, I think for the first time we got a group of coaches and clubs and directors from all over the country, from California to New Jersey to Wisconsin to Texas, to all come together in a room and say, we can do things together that make the game better. And it started out as a 5-year plan that was a pretty ambitious roadmap. We accomplished in less than 5 years because of this huge groundswell of support and this opportunity that just didn't happen before, for leaders to come together, put aside little differences, put aside geographic or club rivalries, and say what's best for the game. And from that point 5 years ago, I think it's fair to say that the soccer landscape on the girls' side has totally changed, and it's done it from a grassroots level, and I think had a huge positive impact on the quality of American female youth soccer.
That's great. It seems like there are a lot of coaches that are involved in the administration of the ECNL. Has that been part of the model?
Yeah, so what separates that league, and I think since the ECNL started, there are a few leagues that have come with similar types of concepts, but what really separated it was saying that as club leaders, as coaches and directors of coaching, we're at the grassroots level. We see the next year's 9-year-olds to next year's 17-year-olds and next year's youth national team stars to the recreational level, and you have a real pulse on the game. And so one of the things we said in forming the league is we need to use this experience, and we need to use all the information that we have at the grassroots level and find what works and what doesn't. And the best way to do that is to go to the source and to talk to the people that are in the environment every day, the people that are coaching the teams, the people that are dealing with the parents, the people that are dealing with the boards, the people that see what competitive structures are working and what aren't, and then try and take all that together and say, how do we make something that is bigger and better?
What do you see as top priorities for youth development in the United States today?
I think that, again, is a long answer potentially, and you could ask 10 people and you get 10 different answers. For me, I think the game has come a long way in 10 years. I think anybody who looked at youth soccer in 1999 or 2004 to 2014, the quality of the game is significantly improved in a lot of ways. Probably the area that, to me, stands out for the most potential improvement now still is coaching education. And I say that not because coaching is bad. I'm a coach, so every day we reflect on what we do well and what we don't do well. But I think there's so much information out there now, whether that's anything from the technical side of the game and new training methodology to science and periodization and psychology or whatever. There's so many things that touch on coaching. I think there's so much information that can be put together and delivered in a very impactful way to people who are reaching players every day, where we can raise the level of coaching in this country by providing more resources, more information, and then also we talk a lot about coaching as a profession. I was a practicing lawyer for 7 years, and I learned a lot in that time about what it means to be a professional. Not a lawyer, but a professional. And I think coaching is a profession if it's done right. And the next step in coaching is for that profession to develop in the way the coaches look at themselves, whether that's in peer relationships, whether that's in just continuing education, whether it's in just constantly evolving and changing and being better every year as a expectation in your profession. So I guess that's my short answer is coaching.
Something that's always struck me, shifting a little bit, about the game is the demands that are placed on kids today. So I grew up playing. I grew up playing through college, played professionally after college, and I can pretty much guarantee that at the age of 13, where my daughter is now, I wasn't asked to practice as much and to perform as much. Is that something that you think is, what is your take on that? Obviously, do you think that that's helping develop the players, or do you think at some point we run the risk of overuse injuries or of kids getting burned out?
Well, I think part of that also is a coaching education issue, because the better your coaches are, the more varied the activities are going to be, so you don't have as much of a risk of overuse or overtraining. So part of that, I think, is an understanding of the values of playing different sports to a certain age, and part of it's training methodology. Part of it's just a society right now of I have to do this and I have to specialize at this age because I want to get this scholarship or this outcome 10 years down the road, which I think that is not generally healthy. I mean, up to a certain age, it's great for kids to play multiple sports, and I think you can have an argument with a lot of people about where that age is. You know, whether that age is 13, 14, 15, some people might say older. I don't think very many people would say younger. But is it a bad thing if a kid who loves the sport is going out there and wants to train more? No. Do kids do stuff on their own as much as they may have 10, 20 years ago? Probably not. I think that every kid's schedule is so much more regulated now, whether it's school to athletics to whatever. So there's probably just some creep that's gotten into everybody's daily schedule of structure that makes maybe what last generation's kids did in free play, this generation's kid does in structured play, and so then people look at it differently. So as long as the kids are enjoying it, I don't think there's a problem with kids who are training a lot, or training more times than they were 10 years ago. It's a problem when it's kids doing things that they don't seem to enjoy. I think that's when we have to start worrying and saying, are we asking kids to do things that they don't want to do, or are we trying to be vicariously living through them?
Yeah, so that brings up another question that I always ask everybody when I'm doing an interview, is talking about the crazy soccer parent. So you've been involved with a youth game and seen probably just about every scenario that you can imagine. How would you describe, because it's something we talk about a lot on soccerparenting.com on my blog, how would you describe a crazy soccer parent?
I'm going to choose my words carefully. You know, I think parents are just a microcosm of society. And I think when somebody gets upset and becomes the crazy parent or whatever it is, it's usually because an emotional trigger of some type has occurred. And so a crazy soccer parent is somebody who is acting irrationally out of emotion because of a disappointing outcome in some sense or another. And it could be playing time, it could be position, it could be word choice, it could be something completely out of left field that nobody saw coming. But I think the problem in coach and parent relationships really starts with emotion and emotional management, and the ability to look beyond the short term and to look at the lessons long term, and really what does this short term experience, how does that impact the long term experience or the long term goal. And I say that on both sides of the equation, parents and coaches, because coaches aren't perfect and coaches make mistakes, and you know, there's parents who aren't perfect either. And I think one of the great things about your blog is trying to bridge that gap, because some better understanding between the two and better patience and better emotional management probably would make things a lot easier for everybody.
Yeah, it really excites me to hear you talk about, you know, coaching education really needing to be a priority in the United States, because really, I think that there's been this gap that's existed between coaches wanting to and understanding and getting some education and information even on how to communicate with parents. And I think as coaches start to look at this as their profession more, and as that becomes more accepted within the youth game, that people are going to realize the importance of connecting with the parents and having them come along with the ride, instead of there being this division that's not always there. Don't get me wrong; right. It's not like it's always there, but it is when it is there and when it is prevalent, it's oftentimes an issue. I understand that U.S. Youth Soccer is coming up with a coach director program, education. Have you been involved with that? And I'm sure I'm not calling it the right name.
U.S. Club Soccer and the NCAA, NSCAA have a director of coaching diploma at a basic level and an advanced level. That's a great program. The basic one is a 3-day program, and the advanced one is a week with some ongoing work after that. And some of the topics in there are not just running a business. There's not a lot of technical topics. Mm-hmm. It's running a business, the finance part of things, the interacting with the board, and then there's a lot of topics on relationships with parents and how do you manage a club. And it's just like coaching is an art and it's not a science. Personal relationships, whether they're with players or with parents, is not a science either. And so I think every person, every coach is going to have their own personality and their own ways of dealing with things. And I think really when you talk about managing a club and then managing relationships with parents or expectations, it really starts with taking a step back and saying, what do I stand for as a coach? What does our club stand for? What is our long-term vision and goal? And then we need to be able to communicate that to parents. And then parents have to decide whether they're supportive of that long-term goal. Mm-hmm. And we all have to look beyond the Saturday morning disappointment or the Tuesday afternoon, bad day of training, and say, am I here for the long-term reason, or are the short-term bumps going to become the focus? And when the short-term is the focus, it doesn't usually work out well for the coach, who's maybe too short-term in his thinking, or the parent who is too short-term in their thinking.
I recently wrote an article about the communication divide, and I suggested that the relationship between a coach and a parent should maybe be similar to that of a teacher and a parent. What did you think of that?
I think that's a great analogy, with one little caveat, which I think is different, which in an ideal world and in the best world, coaching is teaching. And coaches need to look at themselves as educators of players. And that's not just from a soccer standpoint, because soccer is soccer, it's fun, it's a sport, it's great, but the lessons beyond sport that you can get through that process are more important, and a coach can play a big role in that, in whether it's leadership or perseverance or mental resilience or whatever you want to call it. I think the difficult part then also becomes sport is competitive, and if every kid's grades were put up on the front door of the class, and Johnny's got an A and Sally's got a C and Billy's got an F, it would change the teaching dynamic, because that's where I think a lot of the difficulty comes into sports, is everybody sitting down in a room right now is calm, and then we get on a sideline and there's a score, and it doesn't matter sometimes what the age group is. All of a sudden everybody gets excited and overstimulated because their kid is starting or not starting, or playing or not playing, or winning or losing. And all of a sudden, the long-term focus of development, life lessons, all this sort of stuff becomes a little blurred. So I think that the analogy is totally appropriate. The next step is how do we reconcile the difference between an educational focus purely with, okay, there are starters and not starters, which is public. There is good performance and bad performance, which is public. And that doesn't occur in an educational environment.
Is there a consistent mistake that you see parents making, well-intentioned parents making, on a regular basis that you'd like to address?
I mean, I would say it's hard to generalize, but to go back to some of what we've talked about earlier, there's a real difference between short-term thinking and long-term thinking. And most blow-ups or problems or whatever you want to describe them that occur in the athletic environment between a coach and a parent, or a coach and a player and then a parent, usually come because of isolated incidences. If there's a protracted string of things that they're just a philosophical difference between the coach and the family, then it's probably not the right fit. And that's fine, that's life. There's places that work for different people and personalities, and there are places that don't. But I think the bigger problems come when generally it's been a good fit, but then there's one moment of disappointment. And a lot of time that's playing time. Sometimes it's position. Sometimes it's a perfect storm of a bad day for the coach, a bad day for the player, and a bad day for the parent, and then it all comes together. And I think in those moments, and I know it's said in probably every club meeting and every first meeting with the team, but it bears repeating, you have to look long term and say, do I believe in this group as an organization, in these group of coaches and what they're doing, and is generally my son or daughter been happy, learning, growing? And if so, we all need to take a step back. Because part of the ups and downs in the soccer environment, I think the best part of this environment is that those ups and downs are just the same in the real world. And players need to learn to ride through them. And parents need to let them ride through them. And I think the biggest mistakes in the coach-parent relationship happen when there is an incident, and there's emotion, and there's an immediate reaction to a one-off, short-term thing. And so, you know, even if you step 2 days back, it seems better for everybody. And so I just would encourage, and you could say the same thing with coaches who can get overwhelmed in the moment and do things that they look back and say, you know what, I probably shouldn't have done that, or I could have handled that a better way. So on both sides, the ability to take a step back, look long-term, manage and control emotions a little bit, and I think also empathizing a little bit with each other. And we talked earlier about, you know, you're a coach and a parent now, and that's changed you a little bit as a coach. And I think I'm not a parent. So looking and saying, okay, there is a different dynamic between a parent and a player in an athletic environment, that the parent sees certain things and wants certain things from the most pure intentions. And we have to understand that you want the best for your daughter, and then parents need to believe that the coaches want the best for their son or their daughter. And if you don't believe that, then you're in the wrong spot. But if you do believe that the coach does want the best for your son or daughter, then sometimes that means that the best still isn't going to be in a starting spot. It's still not going to be 90 minutes of the game, or whatever it may be, or it still could be there's going to be some disappointment or tough lessons, and this is sport, there are tough lessons. So some empathy, I think, as well is really important.
What does the future of U.S. youth soccer look like to you?
I think it's exciting. I mean, I think the amount of change that's happened in the last 7 years with all the new, the Development Academy, the ECNL, the NPL, there's so many new leagues. Sometimes it's an alphabet soup, we've joked about. But I think that a lot of them have been formed for really good reasons to make the environment better. We talk in the ECNL a lot, our tagline is raise the game or elevate the game, which basically means make the sport better in every way so that the players have a better experience on a day-to-day basis. And they have, today's player is not as good as tomorrow's player because of all this stuff that's changing to make the environment better. So I think it's exciting. I think it's going to keep changing a lot because there's so many different people. It's like a petri dish in some ways of soccer out there, because it's a big country, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of ideas. And I think the more information we get out there in terms of what is coaching, what is professionalism, to raise the level and standard, whether it's a rec club or whether it's the most competitive youth club in the country, I think is just going to be a positive. So I think change is going to keep happening, and the game's going to keep evolving, and the amount of people in the world of American soccer that have an interest in seeing the game grow is great, and growing as well. There's more and more people involved, so I think it's an exciting future.
Well, our goal at soccerparenting.com is also to elevate the game through educating the parents, and it's conversations like these that I really think will have an impact in helping parents get a better understanding of the game and helping the game improve. So thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.